The twin moons hung high over the capital city of Athaliah. The sky was painted with silver light, and the tall towers of the alien palace sparkled like crystal against the night. Inside the great hall, nobles, guards, and advisors gathered, waiting for the queen to speak. The atmosphere was tense. Everyone could feel that something important was about to be announced. The Queen of Athaliah, tall and regal, walked to the center of the hall. Her robe shimmered like flowing water, and her crown glowed softly with symbols of her people's history. She raised her hand, and silence fell over the chamber. The queen's voice carried authority, calm yet heavy with weight. Our people have lived many years in distance from the humans of Earth, she declared. Now, the time has come for unity. For peace. For a bond that will last generations. To show our trust, I have chosen a marriage between our royal house and the human envoys who stand with us. The hall erupted in whispers. Some were shocked, some curious, and others unsettled. The idea of a royal princess marrying a human was not small news. It was history in the making. But among the voices of surprise, one voice rang louder than the rest. "Mother, no," said Princess Lyra, stepping forward from her seat beside the throne. Her eyes were wide with disbelief, and her voice trembled with both fear and anger. "I do not want to marry a human. I cannot accept this." Every eye turned toward her. The nobles shifted uncomfortably, and some guards looked down at the floor, unwilling to meet her gaze. It was not common for the princess to oppose the queen so openly in front of the court. Yet Lyra's words were filled with determination. The queen's face remained calm, though her eyes narrowed slightly. "Daughter, this is not only about you. This is about our people. This union will bring peace after years of doubt and distance. It is greater than your personal wish." Lyra's fists clenched at her sides. She had always been obedient, always loyal to her duty, but this command cut deep into her heart. She did not know the human envoy. She did not know what life awaited her if she accepted. All she felt was that her freedom was being taken away. She wanted her future to be hers to decide, not forced upon her in front of the entire court. At that moment, the tall doors of the hall opened. A group of humans walked in, led by a man dressed in simple yet formal clothes. His hair was dark, his eyes steady, and his expression polite but unsure. This was Tom, the envoy chosen to represent Earth. He walked forward, bowing respectfully to the queen and then glancing toward the princess. He could feel the tension in the room, though he did not yet know its cause. The queen gestured toward him. "This is Tom, the envoy from Earth. He has come with honor and goodwill. Through him, the bond between our peoples will be sealed." Tom's gaze met Lyra's for the first time. He saw defiance in her eyes, a storm hidden beneath her calm face. She looked at him not with curiosity, but with resistance, as though he were a chain meant to bind her. Tom felt uneasy. He had come to build trust, not to take part in something unwanted. The nobles began to speak among themselves. Some praised the queen's vision, saying that such a union would prevent war and bring prosperity. Others muttered quietly that it was too much, that their princess should not be forced into such a fate. The voices blended together, filling the air with rising tension. Lyra stepped closer to her mother. "Why must it be me? Why must peace depend on my marriage? Are there not other ways to build trust?" The queen's expression softened for a brief moment. "Because you are strong. Because the people look to you as a symbol. Your sacrifice will bring hope." But to Lyra, it did not feel like hope. It felt like a cage. She turned away, her chest tight with anger. Her gaze fell on Tom again, and she saw that he looked as uncomfortable as she felt. Yet he said nothing, standing silently under the weight of expectations placed upon him. The queen raised her hand once more. It is decided. Preparations will begin at once. This marriage shall mark the dawn of a new age. The hall erupted again, some in applause, others in dismay. Guards stepped forward to escort Tom and his group to the guest chambers. Lyra remained standing in the center, her heart pounding, her thoughts tangled in fear and resistance. As the hall slowly emptied, Lyra whispered to herself, "I do not want this. I will not let my life be decided by others." Tom, walking toward the chambers, could not shake the look in her eyes from his mind. He had been told this was a mission of peace, but he was beginning to sense there was more to it. He wondered if he, too, was only a piece on the board of someone else's game. The night deepened outside the palace. The moons shone down on the city, silent witnesses to the storm brewing within its walls. A choice had been declared, but not all hearts accepted it. For Lyra, the struggle was only beginning. The sun rose over the palace gardens, casting golden light across the crystal towers. Birds with bright wings circled in the air, their songs filling the morning with life. Yet inside the palace walls, the mood was heavy. Princess Lyra had not slept. She paced her chamber, her mind restless and her heart burdened by her mother's command. She looked out of the window, watching the city below. The people of Athaliah walked their streets unaware of her struggle. To them, she was a princess of strength, chosen to represent unity. To her, she was a prisoner caught in chains of duty. A gentle knock came at her door. Myra, her closest friend, entered. Myra had known Lyra since childhood, and she could see the storm on the princess's face. "You look troubled," Myra said softly. "Troubled," Lyra replied with a bitter laugh. "My mother would have me marry a human stranger for peace. How can I not be troubled?" Myra placed a hand on her arm. "Perhaps he is not as strange as you think. Will you not meet him first?" Lyra shook her head. "What difference will it make? He comes not for me but for what I represent. I am nothing more than a symbol to be used." Still, Myra urged her to calm herself, reminding her that anger would not change her mother's will. Lyra sighed. Deep inside, she knew she could not avoid the meeting that had been arranged. Meanwhile, Tom sat in the guest chamber prepared for him. He looked around the tall walls decorated with alien art. The patterns shimmered as if alive, glowing faintly with the light of the morning sun. He admired the beauty but felt out of place. He had been told by Earth's leaders that this mission was important, a chance to build trust between two worlds. But he had not expected marriage to be part of it. He was an envoy, not a groom. He wanted peace, but he also wanted freedom to choose his own life. As he sat in silence, the door opened, and a guard announced, "The princess will see you in the garden." Tom stood, smoothing his clothes nervously, and followed the guard through the long halls. They passed tall windows that looked out over rivers and bridges shining under the light. Tom's heart beat fast. He wondered what kind of person this princess would be. Would she hate him? Would she accept him? He did not know. The garden was vast, filled with flowers that shifted colors as they moved with the breeze. Lyra stood near a fountain, her gown flowing around her. When she saw Tom approach, her eyes narrowed. She did not bow or smile. She stood tall, her face firm with pride. Tom stopped a respectful distance away and bowed slightly. "Princess," he said in a calm voice, "thank you for meeting me." Lyra's reply was sharp. "I did not choose this meeting. It was forced upon me, as is everything else in this plan." Tom hesitated. He had expected coldness, but her words carried deep pain. "I understand," he said gently. "I did not choose it either." Her eyes widened a little at his honesty, though she quickly hid her surprise. "Then why are you here?" "Because I was sent," Tom admitted. "Because my leaders told me this was for peace. I do not wish to harm your freedom, Princess. I only wish to understand." The two stood in silence for a moment, the fountain's water splashing softly between them. Lyra studied his face, looking for falsehood, but found none. He looked tired, perhaps as burdened as she felt. "You seem honest," she said at last, "but honesty does not change the fact that I am being forced." Tom nodded. "I know. And I do not want to force anyone. Peace cannot grow from chains. It must be chosen." Her heart softened slightly, though she tried not to show it. She crossed her arms, keeping her voice firm. "Then what do you expect from me?" "To smile, to pretend this is my wish." Tom shook his head. "No, I expect nothing. Only that we speak and learn who we are. If our peoples are to trust each other, it must begin with truth." Lyra looked away, her gaze falling on the glowing flowers. For the first time, she wondered if this human might understand her struggle. Yet she was afraid to trust too quickly. As they spoke, advisors watched from a distance. Some frowned, unhappy with the princess's open resistance. Others whispered that perhaps there was wisdom in letting the two know each other before the union. The queen's order still stood, but beneath the surface, the court was divided. Tom tried to ask about her culture, about the traditions of Athaliah. Lyra answered shortly at first, but soon found herself speaking more. She told him of the twin moons, of the ancient songs sung by their people, of the gardens that glowed at night. Tom listened carefully, asking questions not to impress but to learn. For a moment, Lyra forgot her anger. She saw that Tom's curiosity was real. He did not mock her people, nor did he treat them as strange. He listened as though every word mattered. It was a small thing, but it touched her. When their meeting ended, Lyra returned to her chamber with a heavy mind. She still did not want the marriage, but she no longer saw Tom as an enemy. He was a victim of duty, just as she was. Tom walked back to his chamber with similar thoughts. The princess was proud, strong, and unwilling to bend. Yet he could not blame her. In truth, he admired her courage to speak so openly, even against her mother. The day closed with no resolution. Both Lyra and Tom remained trapped in the roles given to them. But a seed had been planted, small and fragile. Neither wanted this union, but in their shared unwillingness, they had found a thread of understanding. And far above the palace towers, as the night returned and the moons rose again, shadows moved among the nobles who whispered in secret. Not all wanted peace. Not all wanted union. Plots began to form in silence, waiting for the right moment to strike. The palace was quiet that night, but Princess Lyra did not rest. She sat near her window, looking out at the twin moons that floated above the city. The lights of Athaliah shimmered below like a sea of stars, yet her heart felt heavy. She remembered Tom's words in the garden. He had spoken with honesty, and for the first time she realized he too was trapped by duty. Still, her fear of losing her freedom pressed hard on her. Myra entered the chamber with a soft knock. She carried a tray with tea made from glowing leaves, meant to calm the heart. She placed it on the table and sat beside Lyra. "You are still awake," Myra said gently. "How can I sleep?" Lyra whispered. "Every step I take, I feel the weight of chains. My mother does not see me. She only sees the princess, not the daughter. She would have me give my life to a stranger for the sake of peace. Myra studied her friend with kind eyes. And yet, this human is not cruel. He seems gentle, and he listens. Perhaps that is more than you expected. Lyra sighed. Perhaps. But even if he is kind, the choice is still not mine. What value does kindness have if I am forced into a bond I did not choose? Myra did not argue. She only offered her hand, and Lyra took it, drawing comfort from her friend's quiet support. Far away, Tom walked through the palace corridors guided by a guard. The walls glowed faintly with silver light, as if the stones themselves were alive. He had asked for a tour, hoping to learn more about this strange yet beautiful world. The guard showed him ancient statues of heroes, carvings of battles long past, and murals that told of peace treaties broken and rebuilt. Tom listened closely. He could feel the weight of history in these halls. He realized that Athaliah was not so different from Earth. Both had known war and both longed for peace. Yet he also felt the tension in every step, the watchful eyes of advisors, the whispers that followed him wherever he went. He knew many in the court did not want him here. That evening, Tom was invited to a dinner with several nobles. They sat around a long table filled with shining fruits and dishes that shifted color as steam rose from them. The nobles spoke politely, but their words were sharp beneath the surface. "Envoy Tom," one noble said, his eyes narrow, "do you believe your people are worthy to join with ours?" Tom placed his cup down carefully. "I do not speak of worth. I speak of trust. I believe trust can grow between us if we choose it." Another noble gave a cold laugh. "Trust is not given so easily. Many remember the past, when humans first arrived with ships and questions. Your kind has always wanted more than what was offered." Tom kept his calm. "I cannot answer for the past, but I can answer for myself. I came here with respect. I came here to learn, not to take." The nobles exchanged looks. Some seemed unconvinced, others thoughtful. Tom noticed the division. It was not only Lyra who resisted. Some within her own people did not want peace at all. Meanwhile, in another chamber, a group of nobles gathered in secret. Their voices were hushed, but their words were filled with anger. "This union is a danger," one said. "If the humans gain a bond with the royal line, they will spread their influence across our world. They must be stopped," another whispered. "The princess resists. If we can use her voice, the plan will fail. But if she begins to accept him," a third warned, "we must act before that happens." Shadows filled the room as their plot deepened. The next morning, Lyra was called to join Tom in another cultural exchange. They were to walk together through the market square under guard, to show the people that unity was possible. Lyra did not want to go, but she could not refuse her mother's order. The streets were alive with merchants calling out their wares, children running between stalls, and music played by performers on glowing instruments. The people cheered when they saw the princess, though their cheers grew quiet when they noticed the human at her side. Lyra walked with her head held high, though inside she was restless. Tom walked beside her in silence, sensing her unease. After a while, he spoke softly so only she could hear. "Do they always look at me this way?" he asked. "They fear what they do not know," Lyra replied. "They fear change." "And you?" Tom asked carefully. "Do you also fear me?" Lyra stopped, turning to face him. Her eyes were steady. "I do not fear you. I fear losing myself." Her words struck Tom deeply. He nodded slowly. "Then we are the same. For I, too, fear losing who I am." For a moment, the noise of the market faded from their minds. They stood together, two figures from different worlds, bound not by love or choice but by duty. Yet within that shared struggle, a spark of understanding grew stronger. They returned to the palace as the sun set, their guards leading them through the gates. The queen watched from her throne as they entered. She smiled, seeing them side by side, but she did not know the thoughts hidden in their hearts. That night, Lyra sat again with Myra, telling her of the walk. He is not cruel, she admitted. He speaks with honesty. He does not wish to bind me any more than I wish to be bound. But still, my mother does not listen. Myra squeezed her hand. Then perhaps the two of you must find your own voice, together. Lyra looked at her friend with doubt. Could she truly stand against her mother's will? In his own chamber, Tom sat in silence. He thought of Earth, of the leaders who had sent him here, and of the princess who now stood beside him in the eyes of the people. He wondered if he was still an envoy, or if he had become a pawn. Yet he could not shake the memory of her eyes when she spoke of freedom. They were strong, unbroken, and filled with fire. And deep within the palace, the nobles who plotted in secret whispered again. Their patience was thin, and their plans grew darker. They knew the bond between princess and envoy must not be allowed to grow. The hidden struggle was no longer just within Lyra's heart. It spread through the halls of power, through whispers in the dark, and through the hopes and fears of two worlds standing on the edge of change. Morning light spilled through the palace windows as Princess Lyra prepared for another day of duty. She dressed in formal robes chosen by her mother's attendants and walked toward the council chamber with heavy steps. She already knew what awaited her: more discussions of unity, more pressure to appear beside the human envoy. When she entered, Tom was already there. He stood at the far end of the room, speaking quietly with two advisors. His expression was calm, but his eyes showed weariness. He bowed slightly when Lyra arrived, showing respect. She nodded in return but said nothing. The queen announced that Lyra and Tom would spend the day together, learning from each other's traditions. The people must see harmony, the queen said firmly. It begins with you both. Lyra wanted to argue, but she held her tongue. She glanced at Tom, expecting him to look pleased, yet he seemed no more comfortable than she was. Their first task was to share meals from each other's culture. In the palace dining hall, long tables were filled with foods from Earth and Athalia. Lyra was offered bread, fruit, and roasted meat from Earth's kitchens. She tasted carefully, surprised by the simple but rich flavors. Tom, meanwhile, was given glowing fruits, steaming grains that shifted color, and a sweet drink that sparkled like liquid stars. He smiled politely as he tasted them, admitting they were unlike anything he had ever known. You do not pretend, Lyra observed quietly. Most guests smile even if they dislike our food. But you tell the truth. Tom gave a small nod. It is better to be honest. Peace built on lies will not last. Her lips curved slightly, almost into a smile, but she quickly looked away. Later, they were led to the palace library, a vast chamber filled with scrolls and glowing tablets. The air was cool and silent, broken only by the hum of floating lamps. Lyra moved among the shelves with grace, her fingers brushing the symbols carved into the walls. These hold the songs of our people, she explained. Stories of battles, journeys, and the wisdom of our ancestors. Tom listened with deep interest. He asked about the oldest tales, the heroes who had shaped Athalia's past, and the songs sung during festivals. Lyra found herself speaking freely, forgetting her anger for a while. She realized he did not listen out of duty, he listened because he truly wanted to understand. As she showed him a scroll filled with bright patterns, their hands brushed by accident. She pulled back quickly, her heart skipping. Tom stepped back as well, his face calm, though he felt the same sudden spark. Neither spoke of it, but the air between them grew heavier. In the afternoon, they walked through the training grounds where the royal guard practiced with glowing spears. Lyra often trained there herself, though few in the court knew. She picked up a practice staff and spun it with ease, her movements sharp and graceful. Tom watched with respect, not mockery. "You fight well," he said. "I fight because I must," she replied. "A princess cannot only sit on a throne. She must know how to protect her people." Tom hesitated, then asked, "Would you teach me?" The request surprised her. Few outsiders ever touched the weapons of Athaliah. For a moment she considered refusing, but something in his steady gaze made her change her mind. She handed him a staff and showed him the first stance. At first he stumbled, awkward with the strange weapon, but he listened carefully and tried again. She corrected his posture, guiding his hands, her voice firm but patient. He improved little by little, and when he finally managed a proper strike, she gave a small laugh, the first he had heard from her. "You are clumsy," she admitted, "but not hopeless." Tom laughed as well, and the sound eased the tension between them. For the first time since their meeting, they both felt lighter. As the sun set, they sat near the garden fountain where water glowed under the fading light. Guards stood at a distance, but the two were left mostly alone. Lyra looked at Tom with thoughtful eyes. "You are not what I expected," she said quietly. "And what did you expect?" he asked. "A man proud of himself, eager to take power through me. A man who would see me as nothing more than a prize." Tom's gaze softened. "I do not want power. I only want peace. But I also want choice. Just as you do." Her heart stirred. She realized that in their shared resistance, they had found common ground. Both were trapped by the wills of others, yet both longed for freedom. Before she could reply, Myra approached with urgent steps. She bowed to the princess and whispered, "There are whispers in the court. Some nobles say the union must be broken at any cost. You should be careful." Lyra's face hardened. She dismissed Myra with a nod, then turned to Tom. "It seems we are watched not only by those who support us, but by those who wish to see us fail." Tom's expression grew serious. "Then perhaps we must stand together, if only to protect ourselves." Her eyes met his, and for a brief moment, the wall she had built inside her heart began to crack. She did not want to admit it, but she no longer saw him as only a stranger. The night came, stars shining over the palace towers. Lyra returned to her chamber with thoughts she could not quiet. Tom returned to his guest room, equally restless. Both knew the path before them was uncertain, but in the space of a single day, something had begun to grow between them. It was not love yet, nor was it loyalty. It was trust, fragile but real. A bond had begun, even against their will. And in the shadows of the palace, the nobles who plotted grew uneasy. The closer the princess and the envoy walked together, the greater the threat to their plans. The palace buzzed with excitement as the festival of the twin moons began. Once each year, when both moons shone full in the sky, the people of Athaliah filled the streets with music, light, and dance. Stalls lined the plazas, glowing lanterns floated into the air, and the scent of sweet fruits carried through the wind. The queen had chosen this festival as the perfect moment to show her daughter and the human envoy together before the people. She believed that if the citizens saw harmony between them, their doubts would fade. Princess Lyra stood in her chamber as attendants dressed her in a gown of silver threads. She looked into the mirror, her face calm but her heart restless. She still did not accept the union, yet she also knew the festival was not the place to fight. The eyes of thousands would be upon her. Myra entered, holding a necklace shaped like a crescent moon. She placed it gently around Lyra's neck. "Whatever happens tonight," Myra said softly, "remember that you are strong. You are more than what others demand of you." Lyra nodded, drawing strength from her friend's words. In another chamber, Tom prepared with simple clothing offered by the palace. He looked at himself, uneasy. He was not a prince, not a warrior, only an envoy sent for peace. Yet tonight, he would stand beside a princess as if he were her equal. He hoped the people would not see him as an intruder. The evening came, and the festival roared to life. Drums echoed through the streets, dancers spun in circles of light, and fireworks painted the sky. The queen led her daughter and Tom to a high platform overlooking the crowd. When they appeared, cheers rose, though not all voices joined. Some clapped with hope, while others watched in silence, their faces uncertain. Lyra lifted her chin, standing tall, while Tom bowed respectfully to the people. Together they walked down the steps into the crowd, surrounded by guards. Children ran forward with flowers, offering them to the princess. She smiled gently, taking the gifts and thanking them. Tom watched with quiet admiration. Despite her burden, Lyra carried herself with grace that touched those around her. As the night deepened, performers filled the plaza. A circle was cleared for dancers, and Lyra and Tom were invited to join. At first, she hesitated, but the queen's gaze pressed her forward. Tom extended his hand carefully, waiting. With a reluctant sigh, Lyra placed her hand in his. The dance began, slow and steady, guided by the rhythm of drums. Tom followed her lead, moving carefully so as not to step wrong. To his relief, she guided him with skill, her hand firm but patient. For a moment, the crowd cheered loudly, seeing unity between them. But hidden among the crowd were shadows. Figures cloaked in dark fabric moved silently through the festival, their eyes fixed on the envoy. As the dance ended and the applause filled the air, a sudden shout rang out. A figure broke from the crowd, rushing forward with a blade that glimmered under the moonlight. The guards reacted too slowly. The attacker charged straight at Tom. Before he could think, Lyra moved. With swift reflexes learned from her training, she stepped in front of Tom and raised her arm. In one motion, she grabbed a staff from a guard and struck the attacker, sending him crashing to the ground. The crowd gasped in shock. The music stopped. Guards swarmed forward, seizing the cloaked figure, but more attackers emerged, blades flashing. Panic spread through the plaza. Tom stood frozen for a moment, then ducked as another blade slashed past him. Lyra pushed him aside and struck again, her movements sharp and precise. The guards joined the fight, clashing with the masked assailants. One attacker lunged at Tom from behind, but Lyra caught the strike, spinning her staff and knocking the blade away. Her eyes blazed with fury as she shouted, "Stay close to me!" Tom obeyed, his heart pounding. He had never seen her fight like this. She was fierce, her strikes filled with strength and control. She was not only a princess of beauty and grace but also a warrior who defended those beside her. At last, the attackers were subdued, dragged before the queen. The crowd, though shaken, began to cheer again, not for the queen's command but for the princess who had defended the envoy with her own hands. The queen's face was cold with anger as she demanded answers. "Who sent you?" she asked the captured attackers. But the cloaked figures kept silent, refusing to speak. Tom stood beside Lyra, his chest still heaving. He turned to her, his voice low. You saved me. She looked at him, her face hard but her eyes softer. I could not let you fall. Whatever I feel about this union, I will not allow blood to be spilled in my presence. Her words struck him deeply. He bowed his head slightly. Then I owe you my life. The queen ordered the attackers taken away for questioning. The festival slowly resumed, though the joy of the night was broken. The people spoke in hushed voices, many praising the courage of their princess. Later, in the quiet of the garden, Lyra and Tom sat together. The guards kept watch at a distance, but for a moment, it felt like only the two of them remained. Tom spoke first. You fight with great skill. I did not know a princess of Athaliah trained like a soldier. Lyra's gaze fell on the fountain, its water glowing faintly in the moonlight. I trained because I never wanted to be helpless. A crown does not shield you from danger. Tonight proved that. He studied her face, seeing both strength and weariness. Your people will remember what you did. They will see you not only as their princess but as their protector. She shook her head. They will still see me as a tool for peace. But at least tonight, I chose my own action. That much was mine. Tom's respect for her grew even deeper. He realized he no longer saw her as someone forced into his life. She was a person of courage, with a will as strong as iron. As the night ended, both carried heavy thoughts. Lyra wondered who truly wanted to break the union. Tom wondered if peace was already slipping away. Yet through the danger, something had changed between them. The princess who had once seen him as a chain had now saved his life. And the envoy who once felt like a stranger now looked at her with gratitude and quiet trust. But in the shadows of the palace, the nobles who had plotted before whispered with greater urgency. The attempt had failed, yet the envoy still lived. If trust grew between him and the princess, their own power would crumble. The threat was not gone. It was only beginning. The morning after the attack, the palace was filled with silence. Guards doubled their watch, nobles whispered in the corridors, and servants moved quickly with tense faces. The queen sat in her chamber, her eyes sharp with thought. She had ordered an investigation, but the attackers revealed nothing. The only truth was clear: the peace between Athaliah and the humans was fragile. Princess Lyra walked alone in the garden, her steps slow. The festival lights had faded, but the memory of the attack remained sharp in her mind. She could still feel the weight of the staff in her hands, the rush of battle, the sound of blades striking. She had protected Tom, not because she wanted to marry him, but because her heart refused to let death stain her land. Tom entered the garden quietly, his simple boots crunching on the gravel. He carried no guards, only his own resolve. When Lyra turned, she saw the same human envoy who once seemed so plain, yet now her view of him was different. He was no longer just a stranger, he was someone whose life she had saved. "Princess," Tom said with a bow. "I wanted to thank you again. Last night, I would not be here if not for your courage." Lyra's gaze softened, though her voice stayed firm. "Do not thank me too much. I did what had to be done. But I will not hide the truth: I still do not wish for this union." Tom nodded. "I understand. And I must tell you something. I do not wish for a union forced by fear or duty either. If peace is to come, it should not be built on chains." Her eyes widened slightly. She had expected him to defend the Queen's plan, yet his words carried honesty that struck her. "You speak as if you also carry a burden," she said. He gave a small smile. "I was chosen as envoy because I am not a soldier or a noble. I am a farmer's son. I know the land, the work, the hunger of ordinary people. When they asked me to come here, I accepted because I wanted peace. But I never thought peace would demand marriage. Lyra studied him in silence. She had imagined him as a willing pawn, but now she saw he too had been caught in the queen's net. Before more could be said, Myra arrived with urgent news. Your Highness, the Council of Nobles gathers today. They demand to speak of the attack. They question if the humans are truly allies or enemies in disguise. Lyra's jaw tightened. So they will twist this night for their own gain. Tom frowned. If the nobles succeed, peace may fall apart. But what do you wish to do, Princess? Her answer came slowly, but her voice grew stronger with each word. I do not want to marry for peace, but I also do not want to see war return. If the Queen binds me to this path, I will resist. But if I choose my own way, then maybe peace can still live. Tom bowed his head, respect clear in his eyes. Then let us face this together, as two voices, not as forced partners. Later that day, the council chamber filled with nobles dressed in fine robes. Their faces carried pride and suspicion. The queen sat at the high seat, her crown shining. Lyra stood to her right, Tom to her left. Murmurs rippled through the hall as the nobles saw them together. One noble, Lord Heron, rose first. His voice was cold. Your Majesty, last night's attack proves what we feared. This union with humans brings danger to our gates. How can we trust them when enemies walk freely among us? Another noble added, perhaps the envoy himself draws the blade. Perhaps the attack was staged to win pity. The chamber filled with whispers. Tom kept his calm, though his heart burned. Lyra stepped forward, her voice clear. Enough. The attackers struck not because of the envoy but because of those who fear peace. Do not blame the victim for the crime of others. The nobles fell quiet, surprised by her boldness. Lyra rarely spoke against them in public. Lord Heron sneered. And yet you defend him so strongly, Princess. Is this sudden care not proof that the Union is already corrupting you? Tom stepped forward now. His tone was steady. I do not ask for your trust. I only ask that you see the truth. I did not come with weapons or soldiers. I came with open hands. If your own people strike at me, then the threat is within your walls, not from mine. The queen watched silently, her eyes unreadable. The nobles exchanged uneasy glances. Some still doubted, but others began to question their own suspicions. Then Lyra spoke again, her voice carrying strength. I will not be forced into marriage. But I will stand beside anyone who seeks true peace, no matter if they are Athalia-born or human-born. If peace is to come, it will not be because my hand is traded like a coin. It will come because we choose it freely. The hall grew silent. Even the queen leaned back in her seat, her expression tight. After a long pause, the queen finally spoke. My daughter speaks with fire, but her words hold truth. Peace cannot rest on chains. Yet know this: if peace fails, it is the people who will bleed, not the nobles who argue in comfort. The council ended with no final decision, but a shift had begun. The nobles had seen a princess unafraid to speak her mind and an envoy who did not bow to insults. That night, in the quiet of the library, Lyra and Tom met again. Between tall shelves of old scrolls, they spoke in hushed voices. You changed the council today, Tom said. Lyra shook her head. No, I only showed them I am not a silent doll. But I do not know if it is enough. It is more than enough, Tom replied. It shows them peace is not weakness. It is choice. And choice has power. For the first time, Lyra smiled, small but real. She saw not just a human envoy, but a companion who understood her struggle. In that moment, they both realized something important. They were no longer two strangers trapped by duty. They were two voices beginning to choose their own path. Far away, in the dark chambers of the nobles who had plotted, anger boiled. Their plan had failed twice. Now the princess and the envoy grew closer not by force, but by trust. And that made them more dangerous than ever. The shadows deepened, and the true enemy sharpened their knives. The morning sun rose over the palace, bathing the towers in golden light. The city of Athaliah was awake, but an unusual calm hung in the air. The events of the past days, the festival, the attack, and the council's debate had changed much. The people whispered of courage, trust, and choice. Princess Lyra walked in the garden, her steps steady. She carried herself with the strength of someone who had faced fear and danger. Tom was beside her, walking quietly, observing the glowing flowers and the peaceful fountains. Though no celebration had yet been announced, a sense of hope filled the air. "You have changed much in these days," Tom said softly. "Not just the council, but the people too. They will remember your courage." Lyra shook her head with a small smile. "It is not just courage. It is truth. If we act with honesty, the people see it. That is more powerful than any speech or law." Tom nodded. "And we have done it together. Not by force, not by duty, but by choice." The queen emerged from her chamber, her expression calm yet thoughtful. She had watched the events unfold, the princess saving the envoy, the council hearing words of truth, and the bond that had begun between them. "Lyra," the queen said, her voice gentle, "you have shown wisdom beyond your years. You faced danger, spoke truth, and protected life. I see now that peace is not built by command, but by the will of those who live it." The princess bowed her head respectfully. "Mother, I only did what I could. I could not let fear and force dictate my actions." The queen smiled faintly. "Then let this be a lesson for all. Strength is not only in power, but in choice and understanding." Later, the council reconvened. Nobles who had once opposed the union now spoke carefully, their words tempered by the events of the past days. Evidence revealed the attackers were motivated by fear of change, not by human plots. Many nobles admitted they had acted too quickly in their judgments. Lord Heron, who had spoken against Tom before, rose again. "Perhaps we were too hasty. We saw threat where none existed." The princess and the envoy acted with bravery, and it shows us that trust can grow when chosen freely. Other nobles nodded in agreement. The tension that had haunted the halls began to ease, replaced by cautious optimism. Lyra turned to Tom. "We did it. Not only for ourselves, but for everyone." Tom gave a small smile. "We did it together. And that is stronger than any command or law." The days that followed were filled with preparation, not for marriage, but for discussions of true peace between humans and Athalians. Tom remained as envoy, but now his role was one of partnership, not obligation. Lyra walked beside him as a princess who had found her voice. Together, they shared their ideas with leaders and citizens, speaking of trust, understanding, and cooperation. In the palace gardens, the people gathered again. This time, not for a festival, but for a celebration of unity and new beginnings. Lyra addressed the crowd with calm authority. "People of Athaliah," she began, "these days have shown us that fear is not a guide to peace. Trust and courage are stronger than threats. We have choices, and we must choose wisely. Today, we begin a new path, one built on understanding, not command. The crowd erupted in applause. Tom stepped forward and added, "From Earth, we come not as rulers, but as friends. We come to share, to learn, and to work together. Together, we can create a future stronger than either of us could build alone." The citizens cheered, not only for the words but for the action they had witnessed. They had seen the princess save a life, face danger, and speak truth. They had seen the human envoy act with respect and honesty. The people understood that peace was no longer a distant idea, it was alive in their hearts. Later that evening, in the quiet of the palace library, Lyra and Tom spoke once more. "Do you think our work is finished?" Lyra asked. Tom shook his head. "No, but it has begun. Peace is not a moment, it is a journey. And now, we travel it together, freely." Lyra smiled, the first true smile of relief and hope. "I never imagined I would find a partner, not as a tool of duty, but as a companion in choice. And I never imagined I would find trust and courage like yours," Tom replied. The Queen entered quietly. She watched them, seeing the bond they had formed not a forced union, but a partnership built on respect and understanding. "You have both taught me much," she said softly. "Perhaps the strongest bonds are not made by law or command, but by hearts willing to act with honesty and courage." The palace felt lighter that night. The threat of sabotage had been overcome, the people inspired, and the princess and envoy stood together as symbols of a new future. As the twin moons rose over the city, Lyra and Tom looked toward the horizon. They did not know every challenge the future would bring, but they knew one thing clearly: they would face it together, as equals, as allies, and as friends. In the days to come, humans and Athalians worked side by side. Trade began, cultural exchanges flourished, and old suspicions faded. The palace, once filled with fear and whispers, became a place of learning, cooperation, and hope. The princess no longer felt trapped. She had chosen her own path, stood by her principles, and inspired others to do the same. The envoy had proved that honesty and respect could bridge worlds. And together, they had begun something greater than either could have imagined: true unity, born of choice, courage, and trust. Above the palace, the twin moons shone brightly, reflecting on the crystal towers. A new day had begun for Athalia, a day where humans and aliens stood together not by command, but by will. And for Princess Lyra and Tom, the journey of trust, understanding, and friendship had only just begun. The future was uncertain, but it was theirs to shape. And for the first time, it felt full of hope.